This is what it looks like when government fails to function. Double the usual line for food at the World Food Bank this morning. And they said most of the people lined up for help told them that they had been impacted by the federal government pausing SNAP food benefits. Today, the Trump administration is grudgingly and partially funding those food benefits after being forced to by 2 federal judges. It's not clear, though, how much food assistance Americans will get or when they'll get it. The Trump administration says the USDA's contingency fund will only cover about half of the $8 billion needed to pay for the SNAP program this month. Usually takes a week or two to load SNAP benefits onto debit cards. The Trump administration warns it could take even longer for states to calculate and process reduced benefits. About 600,000 Coloradans depend on those benefits. And the World Food Bank says they are already serving families feeling the immediate impact of benefits lapsing over the weekend.
Even as of 7:30, we had 75 cars in line, and by the time we opened up, there was more than 100 cars waiting to get food assistance from us this morning. We're probably serving twice as many people right now than we would have last Monday should the funding of SNAP been there. So it does feel like that we are serving a lot more folks.
This is next. So you don't just watch when Colorado faces difficult challenges, you do something to help your neighbors. And since last Wednesday, you have raised $55,000 to stock that particular food bank, the Weld Food Bank. Monthly donors to the Word of Thanks Fund are going to bring that total generosity to about $85,000 raised. That is incredible. Thank you. Now, usually we wrap up each microgiving campaign on Monday by just saying that. But given the overwhelming need to feed Coloradans right now, we've put up that QR code again for anybody who is still willing to join me and a bunch of other Coloradans in donating. Or you can text the word thanks to 303-871-1491. And on Wednesday, we'll have a new microgiving campaign to continue the fight against hunger in another part of Colorado. We're pivoting our weekly microgiving campaigns here on Next to help feed our neighbors and doing just that until further notice as food banks are strained by the government shutdown and the lapse in SNAP funding. I want to directly address a concern, a criticism that I heard from a number of you about the fact that we have started this by raising $85,000 for the Weld Food Bank in deep red pro-Trump Weld County. They voted for this, is what a number of you have told me. Teach them a lesson, others have said. I cannot disagree more. For starters, I don't know the personal politics of everybody in the food bank line, but I do know that half of Colorado's 600,000 SNAP recipients are children. They didn't vote for anything. And what lesson is a child supposed to learn from hunger? But even if people are only talking about the consequences for the parents, we cannot keep reducing everyone and everything to people's perceived politics, or worse yet, the perceived politics of their community. That's a path toward making our problems worse, not better. Now, I get it. Giving is voluntary, and it is highly personal. I respect that. I know that that means that some people will only choose to extend charity to people who vote like them, or pray like them, or look like them. And it goes both ways. I have heard similar concerns and criticism from folks who believe that problems in urban areas, blue cities, are the fault of the people who live there and vote there, that it's their consequences to suffer, and vice versa for rural areas, for red counties. We heard that in particular when your Word of Thanks microgiving restored a mental health program for farmers and ranchers that was cut by the Trump administration. And we also heard it when your donations helped to feed and clothe migrants who are welcomed by Denver. But much louder than that point of view were the thousands of people who quietly gave to help other folks who don't look like them, or pray like them, or vote like them. If I've learned anything from 5 years and $16 million of your microgiving, it is that you care about improving the lives of people you may never meet in places you may never go, simply because they're our neighbors. So in this time when some are gaining power through division, your weekly microgiving, coming from and going to every corner of this state, you all prove that there is also power in kindness, compassion, and seeing people instead of just politics. Hey, if you want to do something cool that most of your neighbors will not do, vote. Drop that mail ballot off or vote in person like it's 1999 by tomorrow at 7 p.m. In this off-year election, more than 800,000 Coloradans have voted so far, 800,000 out of 4 million plus. Every voter in the state can vote on MM and LL to allow Colorado to tax individuals or households making more than $300,000 a year to fund school meals for all kids. Voters said yes to this in 2022, but the state underestimated the cost of that program. If you were in Denver, billionaire Michael Bloomberg would really like you to vote yes on referendum 310 to keep Denver's ban on flavored tobacco. The former mayor of New York City has donated nearly $5 million for this campaign. Denver clerk's office says it is a record for the largest contribution from an individual to a municipal race in Denver. Mayor Mike Johnston is the chief pitchman for the nearly $1 billion Vibrant Denver bond. This is the 5-piece mega infrastructure project that voters will decide tomorrow night. The items are grouped by theme: parks and rec, housing, health and human services. Take the transportation component. That pairs improvements to 6th and 8th Avenues, designed to pave the way for a future Broncos stadium, with repairs to the crumbling bridges that soon might not be able to carry emergency vehicles near Denver Health. Why should voters have to give the Broncos billionaire owners what they want for their stadium area in order to get safe bridges next to the hospital?
Because this is about a priority of where the city's most significant needs are. There are 5 of the bridges we're most concerned about in the city. That includes the one at Lincoln and Spear that you mentioned. It includes 2 on Quebec Boulevard and includes 6th and 8th. 3 of those are in this bond package. 2 will be in our capital plan for next year. That's how you prioritize these long-term investments. Important to know, none of that changes the fact that the Broncos will pay for all of their stadium and their land on their own. Whatever happens at that site is going to have connectivity. There are folks in Denver you can find who are trying to do development at that site 6-8 years ago, long before I was mayor, and were worried about connectivity.
Is it fair for Denver's voters to use this bond package as a referendum on how they think you're doing as mayor?
I think this is not about that. I think this is about what are the key things you want to get done in your neighborhood, and do you want there to be a safe crosswalk to school in your neighborhood? Do you want your rec center to have air conditioning? Do you want to have a library in your neighborhood? Do you want to make sure the bridges in and out of your neighborhood are safe? I think those are really the baseline questions. They're going to have some things they agree with me on, some they disagree on, but I hope this is really a simpler in some ways and a bigger question in some ways on how they feel about the rest of the city. It's, do they want these intensely local investments? And that's where we find over and over people say yes, they do.
If this isn't a referendum on your leadership, what opportunity do voters have to weigh in and tell you whether you're on track or off track?
Oh, I think they have the chance to tell me that all the time. I mean, I do public events probably 10, 15, 20 times a week where I'm out getting that feedback, talking to people. I've been knocking doors, getting just that feedback. And so one of the reasons I like knocking doors on the bond or texting or calling people is they can say, hey, we got an issue on our street right now, the street sweeping and the trash pickup is on the same day. So we can't get street sweeping and trash out at the same time. That was my conversation on Saturday. So I try to make myself available for all of those pieces of feedback. And I think you can have frustrations about certain things, right? You want the compost bins to get out faster. Great, we'll work on that. It doesn't mean that you need to be against the whole vision for the future of the city, which I think is what this bond is about. And so
you can see my full conversation with the mayor on the next YouTube channel, where we talk about the idea of why borrow at all and incur that debt. And we also discuss whether his credibility is damaged right now to the point that it could endanger these projects. But let's go deeper on this issue of the transportation component and what happens if Denver voters turn down the spending around the future Broncos Stadium and with it, all those other crumbling bridges. Here's Marshall Zellinger.
Major road projects get funded in the city of Denver through bonds. The ballot language for Issue 2A specifies road improvements on Santa Fe, on West 38th Avenue, on Evans Avenue near DU. It does not specifically say the 6th and 8th Avenue viaducts just south of where the Broncos want to build their new stadium. Bridges that by the city's own admission in June are not quite in the fourth quarter of the game.
We still believe that they have about 15 years left of life left in them.
At a June meeting where a council committee got an update on some of the city's worst bridges, council members found out some of the 2A bond projects are necessary, like the $30 million needed to rebuild Lincoln Avenue and 6th Avenue bridges over the Cherry Creek near Denver Health, before heavy emergency vehicles like fire trucks are restricted from going over. And some of the 2A projects, like the ones that would benefit the city and the Broncos, are simply improvements.
What about the 6th Avenue Viaduct over Burnham and the 8th Avenue Viaduct over Burnham? What's their life?
What you're seeing on this slide is combining both those urgent structural health and safety needs as well as the future development needs.
Bonds are how the city pays for big bridge projects. If not bonds, then what builds new transportation infrastructure? About $5 to $7 million a year comes from property taxes. There's also some general budget dollars, like $7.5 million the mayor has proposed next year for bridges along Quebec near I-70 that need to be rebuilt, and $11 million for emergency repairs. And then there are federal dollars and grant dollars that the city seeks for road infrastructure, which is one reason we heard in July as to why the $50 million 6th Avenue Bridge and the $89 million 8th Avenue Viaduct are being included in the 2A bond.
And it is now time to get this bridge in the queue because it is showing signs that it needs investment. We will have to leverage federal dollars, our own dollars, bond dollars in order to make it happen.
I guess the short answer is if not for bonds, the city will have to decide how much general fund dollars it wants to spend on transportation projects. If not, go to voters with a different question. The city was clear, though, in the meetings leading up to the bond issues that the 6th and 8th Avenue bridges, Kyle, are vital. Tens of thousands of drivers or tens of thousands of cars a day go over those. But they're not at the top of the list of the crumbling bridges.
They have managed to keep any of the potentially controversial projects from standing alone. They're all surrounded by other stuff in these packages.
Yeah, I had this conversation at home with my wife when we were looking at some of the things, that sometimes they package them just enough for you to like some of the things, even if you don't like some of the other things, that it's like, well, if I say no to the small thing I don't like or the big thing I don't like, then I miss out on all this other stuff. City Council did it to Hancock 4 years ago by isolating the arena by itself. City Council made that decision to make its own ballot issue.
And it's one of the rare ones that Denver voters have said no to in recent years. Marshall Zellinger, thank you. ICE admits they took a father and his kids because agents in Durango thought he was somebody else. Attorneys say it's not just a mistake, it's a larger pattern.
Before they seek to detain and arrest someone, they ought to make sure they have the right person.
And there is a fight brewing tonight, right now, before Denver City Council, where some leaders want to pull money from police to spend on homelessness. That's next. A family from Durango, dad and his kids, are in ICE detention in Texas after agents mistook him for someone else, but held on to him anyway, despite the family's pending asylum claim. ICE faces a lawsuit in Colorado alleging they're breaking the law by detaining people like that without warrants. Our Angeline McCall has that.
A decision about who ICE can arrest and detain is now in the hands of a judge.
And so it's really important that ICE complies with the law. Our laws are harsh enough as they are.
Tim McDonald with the ACLU says it's against the law when ICE detains someone without a warrant, so-called warrantless arrests.
And we are seeing these are not the exceptions. This is what ICE is doing across the country. While their rhetoric claims they're going after what they call criminal.
Their lawsuit names 4 different plaintiffs, including a Utah student pulled over in Mesa County who was detained following a traffic stop, even a business owner in Colorado whose identity was mistaken for someone else.
It really shows the impunity with which ICE is willing to act.
In court, McDonald says ICE admitted that the same situation unfolded once again. ICE detained a father and 2 kids in Durango despite admitting to looking for someone else.
Yeah, that's right. ICE admitted in court that that was a mistake. And rather than release the family, 2 children, rather than release them, they spirited them out of the state and moved them to detention in Texas.
McDonald says cases like these are happening every day.
And before they seek to detain and arrest someone, they ought to make sure they have the right person.
ICE won't comment on pending or ongoing litigation. In court filings, though, ICE argues that Congress has authorized immigration officials to interrogate individuals and to conduct arrests with or without a warrant. Now it's in the hands of the judge to determine what is the definition of the law. No exact timeline for the judge's decision. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, if not a little longer. We could expect to see continued appeals and ongoing litigation as well with this one, Kyle.
Angela, it doesn't seem like there's much incentive for these ICE agents to be super targeted in who they stop because they know that there are incentives just to do numbers and bring anybody in regardless of whether they're a suspected criminal.
And that's exactly what the lawsuit alleges, is that this is really all to do with quotas set by the Trump administration, and it doesn't really matter the circumstances. If someone doesn't have documentation or status, then, basically ICE says that's fair game to them.
All right, Angeline McCall, thank you very much. Yesterday's incredible heat in November. Climate change or just a hot day? Chris Bianchi, discuss.
Yeah, so a great answer to what is often framed as a black or white question here, Kyle. It was not warm yesterday because of climate change. However, the extreme, the fact that we hit 83 degrees on November the 3rd, that is likely the product of climate change, if that makes sense. So again, it was not hot because of climate change. However, the extreme, the 83, that is likely the influence of a warming climate for us here in Colorado. Tomorrow, another very warm day ahead for us. Temperatures in the 70s and 80s. Best way to visualize climate change from a broad perspective. And the fact that it still hasn't snowed yet, and we're just coming off of our 5th consecutive warmer than average October. That is more of a better way to measure climate change. Next few days, 60s for us. Average high this time of year is in the upper 50s. We will cool down this weekend with temperatures dropping back into the upper 50s for us on Sunday.
Right now, Denver City Council is slicing and dicing the mayor's budget, proposing taking millions out of the police budget. That's next. Denver City Council is debating the mayor's budget tonight, which sounds boring as sin, but trust me, it is not. It is fight night at the City and County building as City Council considers moving millions of dollars out of the police budget over the objections of the mayor. This is the work of progressives on City Council. They propose using funding for recruiting classes and instead putting it toward homelessness programs and affordable housing. Councilman Paul Cashman says he thinks the mayor's proposed budget doesn't do enough to address the root causes of crime.
For me, this budget needs to do a lot more to spend money on housing, to spend money on programs for kids and families, to spend money on mental health, to spend money on drug treatment. Until we do that, we're intentionally putting our police officers in more danger than they need to be.
Police Chief Ron Thomas came in tonight and told council that cutting funding for future recruiting classes would have what he called a staggering impact. He estimated it could add up to 2 minutes to response times on priority calls. And even the city's chief housing officer, who we should say reports to the mayor, was hesitant to even take the funding. She told council she was concerned about the impact it would have on public safety.
If you said to me, Jamie Rife, I'm going to give you $9 million that has no repercussions across the city, that's amazing. Of course I would, I'd do my best, but this does have repercussions across the city that we need to be thoughtful about. And it's hard for me to put that aside.
They're going to be voting on amendments late into the night there at City Council. Our friend Spencer Soysher is there keeping track of it for 9 News at 9 and 10. If these amendments pass, they're likely to be opposed by the mayor's office, as the mayor has gone out of his way to protect the public safety budget and even exempted the police department from citywide layoffs earlier this year. We are back with your feedback. Thank you. Next. A lot of feedback tonight about our microgiving to the Weld Food Bank and my discussion about why I think that we should be giving into red and blue areas irrespective of politics. Sarah says, I have no problem with supporting any food bank as I am a SNAP recipient. Sarah says, as a longtime 9 News viewer, I'm very disappointed that all your focus is on the Weld Food Bank. So Sarah, if we have not been clear on this, we're going to focus on fighting hunger in Colorado for the foreseeable future with our next Word of Thanks microgiving campaign. So Wednesday kicks off our next one. That's when we start each campaign. That'll be in a new area of our state. And I've been talking with folks all across Colorado about what can we do to help. So we will get there. Wendy says, thanks for tonight's message. Good to see somebody in the news media with heart, not worried about being taken off the air. I wouldn't say I'm not worried, but there's important stuff to say.